Welcome to the video. Before we begin, if not already, please take a moment to subscribe. It helps out the channel a lot. And click the bell icon to receive notifications when I upload. Comment your little heart out. And most of all, please enjoy. Now back to the video. Roadhouse. Roadhouse is the remake of the Patrick Swayze 1980s classic.
Roadhouse.
Dalton, a professional bouncer, is hired to clean up a rough and rowdy bar. He then fixes up the bar, finds a girl, and then rips a guy's throat out. Not the greatest movie, but it did have that 80s charm, and it was definitely a product of the time. A silly, guilty pleasure. In the remake, Dalton is not a professional bouncer, but a former UFC fighter. Or MMA, I don't know the difference. Somehow, he's still good at being a bouncer, which takes more than being able to beat up someone. You have to be able to read people, de-escalate situations, stuff you don't expect to be part of UFC training. Jake Gyllenhaal, taking over from Swayze, does a pretty good job. He's quippier, he's quicker this time, jokier.
You have medical insurance? Is your coverage good? Like, you have dental? Oh, haha.
But all around, he's definitely a lot less zen. Later in the movie, he gets very serious. Swayze almost had kind of a mysterious, mystical drifter quality about him. Gyllenhaal tries to be something like that, but at the same time, he's like a sledgehammer.
You alright? What?
We get the backstory this time around about how he killed a guy. Okay. So he's a guy you can't push too far, and he's in a profession where he can get pushed too far. Just seems like you're asking for trouble. If Gyllenhaal looks like he's having fun with this movie, Conor McGregor is having an absolute blast.
Don't let no one get this close.
He's the bad guy's heavy hitter, you know, every 80s henchman. The guy who's supposed to be a match for our hero. And here he is an unstoppable juggernaut, and he lays waste to everything around him. He also turns the movie into a cartoon. Roadhouse was already kinda cartoony, but he took it to Animaniacs level. I can't decide if he's the best thing or the worst thing about this movie. And like in the original, the main big bad boss really isn't nearly as threatening. Originally, he's this middle-aged guy, kind of acting tough, but I didn't quite buy it. And this new guy comes across as a spoiled, clueless alpha male wannabe. You know, the kind of bros you see on Twitter. But this guy's just an irritating little weenie. Doug Liman's direction is very kinetic, very fast, energetic, and he doesn't shy away from the CGI, which unfortunately kind of takes the weight off. Some of the action is obviously enhanced, and it just doesn't feel real. Gyllenhaal played Dalton with an understated energy. Kind of makes him less interesting though, because he's very stone-faced through a lot of the movie. He's like stone-faced, funny line, stone-faced. It really contrasts with McGregor, who is constantly on, he's constantly moving in a single direction. He's hard to take seriously as a villain. He was just too much fun. It's like getting mad at Bugs Bunny, but there's nothing else going on there. He's like a wind-up ass-kicking machine that lives to create chaos, but there's no substance. He's a very one-dimensional trick. He beats Gyllenhaal so hard, I thought he was hired by Taylor Swift. He knows what he did. The Roadhouse is not the Double Deuce. The Roadhouse is called The Roadhouse. They acknowledge this lack of imagination. It's not this dive bar. It's this quaint, tiki kind of place on Key West on a gorgeous island with fantastic views, beautiful water, and it's just not what you expect a rough and tumble dive joint to be. There's still chicken wire in front of the band that still somehow manages to shatter bottles. It ain't up there that tight. This place would live on Instagram, packed with duck-faced models. And of course, there's violence. Most of the violence is caused by a biker gang hired to scare them off by an evil land developer. Is this Scooby-Doo? Even the biker gang comes off as mostly a bunch of weekend warriors. No real sense of menace. They act tough, they do tough things, but you don't feel any sense of danger out of them.
Those are your bikes out there, right?
Yeah, mine's a red one on the right.
And the story feels rushed. The relationships evolve with no sense of time or progress. We finally get to see why the cops don't really do anything about the trouble at the Roadhouse. Spoilers, they're corrupt. And if I do mention anything that's kind of remotely spoilery, it's because it's just so obvious. I'm not really sparing you from any, ooh, surprise. This was written very in your face, very what you see is what you get. There's no layers, there's no second level. It's just right there in front of you.
Roadhouse.
Nothing wrong with that. Just go in expecting that. It's a turn your brain off movie that turns your brain off for you. And kudos to the band that won't stop playing even when the entire joint is trying to kill each other. Gotta get those tips, man. The dialogue serves its purpose. Nothing special. I don't remember much about it. And that kind of reminds me of a problem I've been seeing in a lot of movies lately. In the 80s and 90s, where did you come from? There you go. There's a girl. Okay. Anyway, where was I? In the 80s and 90s, writers seemed to take a lot more care with their dialogue. Lines would be memorable, quotable, some elevating to iconic. The kind of thing where you could identify a movie from the line. It reuses some of the same lines, but it really doesn't add anything new.
Roadhouse.
It copies a lot of the same beats from the original. There's a store he makes friends with early on that gets torched. Only this one doesn't have a car. There's a boat chase. A boat chase in Roadhouse. That just felt so out of place. Actually, the entire third act starts to feel like a Fast and Furious movie with more fist fighting. I'm trying to keep a straight face with a cat just roaming around my table. I mean, there's plenty of action, so it kept my attention.
I'm gonna have Sam here hurt you.
Oh, no.
Oh,
The tone is also all over the place. It's gritty and violent, and then it's light and funny. It's kind of weird. It's almost like they wanted to make this a comedy parody of itself, like what they did with Baywatch a few years ago, and Chips, which I totally thought was funny. There are times when they take themselves too seriously, and it's just, the tone just doesn't work. The fights are frenetic, yet cartoony. Nothing wrong with that, but it just kind of goes with the rest of this insane movie. It's just hard to care. It even ends differently from the original, where you can see them leaving just enough space open for a sequel. He's gonna be like the Incredible Hulk. He'll just go from town to town and clean up roadhouses on his journey. In the end, I was entertained, but by the time it was over, it just didn't stick. Roadhouse is 2.5 Bs. Yet another unnecessary remake that adds nothing but empty calories. It's not terrible, but it's not great. It's not memorable. It's just kind of middle of the road. Roadhouse. Thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, comment the bell. You know, the usual YouTube stuff. This is theNewBee, and I'll see you later, kids. Toodles.
Roadhouse.